All right. This one on, Kim?
I don't know. No, I didn't turn it on.
So you can finagle with it or whatever. Dude, you gotta. All right. You guys ready? All right. So hopefully, I'm trying to get this down in my head because this is another iteration of this that I've done, and I'm just trying to work through it. After I do it a couple times, I'll have it down pretty well. All right, so this time management workshop. So this is like one of the favorite workshops I do, and I think it's most effective for people to begin to really seize control of their life, and especially in this crazy world. And you guys have to admit that the world is pretty crazy right now, right? It's like everything that the world does like tries to rob you of your existence, tries to rob you of becoming everything that you're intended to be. And if we look at it, there's more chaos and disorder than ever before. And we've replaced order with all of that. And then we've replaced like normal, vibrant life and health with being dysfunctional, sick, and diseased. It's become the new norm. And it's just, and in fact, we've taken like being like having a spirit of peace and happiness, and we've replaced it with being depressed and worry and anxiety and fear. It's just become the new norm. But the reality is it's not normal, it's not natural. We've changed this world. Everything is becoming like quick and easy. I've always talked about being obedient and disciplined, and we're trying to make everything to be quick, easy, and most pleasing. And now you're starting to see like everything that's fast. It's like fast food. What was that stat, Kim? 84 million Americans eat at fast food. You have like Amazon Prime, like one-day delivery, right? It's like DoorDash. You can order a cup of coffee and they deliver it to your office for you. I mean, it's crazy. It's like all these time and labor-saving devices. But if you look at it, with all this technology, all this quick this and fast that, who here's got more time? It's like nobody has more time. And so whatever we're doing, we have to take a close look at it, because it's really not effective, or and it's just simply not working. We're a sicker, sadder, more suffering culture than ever before. So these things aren't really working out. We have to take a good close look assessment of how we're living our life and how we're spending our time. And that's why we do this workshop. This workshop it's not about what most people think would be a time management workshop where we're gonna sit there and prioritize your life and then plug and play, put it in a schedule. I mean, there's some element of that on the back end. In fact, I talked to a patient the other day who came to it, and I think they were a little disappointed that there wasn't more of that. And I don't think they really understood, and I want you guys to get this as we go through this, that it's more about a paradigm shift in the way that you looked at the perfect amount of time that God has given you to be on this planet to serve your purpose. He's given us the perfect amount of time, right? And so I think once we have that kind of mindset and we start to look at things clearly for what they are, then you start to make better decisions. And that's like that whole Martin Luther King quote that I always say, and I'll say it now just because we're recording this, but he said that if an earthly institution or custom conflicts with God's will, it is your Christian duty to oppose it. And you must never allow the transitory, evanescent demands of a man-made institution to take precedence over the eternal demands of the Almighty God. And as you guys know, what he's saying there, with all things, there's man's way and there's God's way. And man's way is transitory or evanescent. It changes with the blowing of the wind or the times, right? But God's way is eternal and everlasting. It's what was and is and always will be. You have a responsibility to understand this natural order that God has given us to live in and to align with it. You can't expect the world to conform to you. You have to conform to the world that God has created, right? Does that make sense? And so that's what we want to do, is look at, the perfect amount of time that God's given us and be most effective. And I think that's like one of the greatest things that any human being could ever do is be effective in their life. No matter where you're at right now, even if you're looking to become more effective, or if you're a little more advanced in your ways and efforts and you're just looking to live your life to the fullest, then one of the greatest assets that you have to achieve that is to know how to use your time effectively, right? Does that make sense to you guys? And that's really what we want. It's like poor misuse of time is one of the greatest reasons that we don't live the kind of life that we want to have, or more importantly, that really God's got planned for us. And so let's take a look. Let's take a look at like how we value or look at time in our culture. So you hear these sayings, time flies, right? Time waits for no man. Time is precious. Time is money. Time heals all wounds. Time reveals all truths. I mean, it heals all wounds and reveals all truths. All truths are revealed in time. I say it all of the time. And so, but at the end of the day, it's as valuable as we view it, as important of a commodity it is, we waste it all of the time every day. And so we've got to like take another close look at how we spend our time on this planet. And so this New York Times bestseller and businessman, Harvey McKay, he had this interesting vantage point on it. He kind of talks about how time is a dichotomy. He says time is free, but it's priceless. So, you know, you could be the richest person on the planet and you can't afford it, but you could be the poorest person on the planet and you get to use it just the same, right? So you can't own it, but you can use it. Everybody gets to use it, but you're not allowed to own it. You can't keep it, but you could spend it, and you could spend it all you want to, right? But there's nothing, you can't take it, and you can't put it in a bank, you can't put it in a box, you can't put it in a jar, you can't chain it, you can't hit the pause button, but you can use it all of you want. And then once you've lost it, you can never get it back. Once time is gone, it's gone forever, never ever to be seen again. And so, but I think the greatest dichotomy of all, when you look at this, is the fact that there never seems to be enough time, right? You guys with me on that? But yet there's still the perfect amount of time. Because, you know, at the end of the day, what God makes, He makes perfect, as we'll talk about in just a second. So I think instead of focusing on what we don't have and what we're not in control of, I think we need to focus on what we do have and what we are in control of. So check this out. I love this here. So imagine if every day when you woke up, somebody deposited $86,400 into a special bank account just for you. And the rules of engagement are that you have to spend every one of those dollars by the end of the day. And you could spend it on pretty much anything that you want to. But however, whatever you don't spend at the end of the 24 hours will disappear and it'll be gone forever. Do you guys think that you could spend that money? About $90,000 a day. Can you spend it? Okay. What would you buy? Name some things you would buy. What would you buy to spend $90,000 a day? You had $90,000. What would you buy? Every day. Your entire life. Can't give it away. You have to spend it.
Vacation.
A vacation, what'd you say? A what?
Land and properties. Yeah, stocks. Yeah, invest in it.
Invest in it.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Anything else? Bigger barns, nicer clothes, designer jeans, fancy cars.
Yeah, I would donate something.
Okay, and so here now know this.
Provide to people also.
That at the end of the day, that however you spent that money, your whole life would be judged. Now knowing that, would that change the way you spend it? I mean, would you help other people? Would you do things to help humankind? What would you do to leave a legacy? Right? You guys with me on that? Well, the reality is, you have something very similar that's given to you. You have an account where God gives you 86,400 seconds every single day. And any one of those seconds that you don't use effectively is wasted and lost and gone forever. And similarly, at the end, how you spend that time, you will meet your maker and you will be judged. So this is how we need to start looking at things, right? See, initially, when you think about that account and you think of all the money, you think about all the material possessions that you want. That's the first thing that pops into your head. And then you said, well, let me not waste it. And you said, well, let me invest it and be smarter with my money and fill up my barns. And so you just want more wealth. And look at somebody like Steve Jobs. So that guy was 56 years old when he died, and he was worth $10.2 billion. So what we did was we calculated out 365 days per year over 56 years. And we divided $10.2 billion by that number. Guess how much money he made every single day of his life? What would you think? Every day of his life, from the time he was 1 day old to the time he died, how much did he make every day based on his net wealth when he died? Throw a number out there, you can't be wrong.
I'm gonna roughly guess 90,000.
About $500,000 every day. Knowing what he was going to make when he was born, by the time he was 1 day old, he was worth $500,000. By the time he was 2 days old, he was a millionaire. By the time he was a week old, he was worth $3.5 million. And what's it doing for him now? And when he was suffering and had pancreatic cancer, all the money in the world couldn't save his life. We have to ask ourselves, what are we spending our time? Are we building wealth? Are we building health? Right? I mean, that's one legitimate question. But even in the end, your physical being is going to fail you. And the time that you have on this planet is just a grain of sand on a beach of eternity. And so even your physical existence will one day be gone. You guys heard the latest stats on death, right? What is it? It's 1 out of 1. Everybody's going to be dead. So you better be careful on how you live your life and the things that you do, because at the end of the day, you're going to meet your maker, right? And you want to hear those words, at least I do. I try to live my life consistently with this one notion in mind. You want to hear those words at the end of the day, well done, good and faithful servant. Well done, good and faithful servant. And if you live your life according to that, you're going to make a hell of a lot better decisions along the way. Does that make sense too? So what I want you guys to know is that 86,400 seconds in a day is the perfect amount of seconds. 1 second more would be too many, and 1 second less would be too few. Because what God makes, He makes absolutely perfect. He is the creator of heavens and earth. He's the architect of night and day. He finned the fish and winged the bird and fanged the beast. And in His crowning glory, He made you and He made me. And we were fearfully and wonderfully made in His image. And don't think He's going to give us life and not give us purpose, right? He charges us with a mission. We're called to do something on this planet. And don't think He's going to set us up with an impossible mission. He gives us the perfect amount of time to do exactly what we are called to do. The perfect amount of time for that. You know, I really think that, well, first of all, I think the 2 greatest days of your life are what? The day you were born and the day you discover why. So realizing your purpose on the planet is one of the greatest things you could ever do. But I also think that one of the worst things that could ever happen to somebody is not that they die early, it's the potential life that they don't live when they're alive. Are you guys with me on that too? And so we need to know that we're made to be superheroes, to be extraordinary, to be supernatural. I mean, you guys know this when you come to work here, that's what we want. We ask you what you want to do, what you want to be. And I don't know if it's a gift or a curse, but unfortunately, when I see people, I see the best in them. That's what I see. When patients walk in the front door of the office, I don't see someone who's broken down, sick and suffering on a plethora of medications. I see somebody who's already broken free from those bonds, that the chains are gone, that they're off the medications, that they're living amazing, healthy, vibrant. I see it before it happens. I know how the story goes. We know that they just have to remove the interference, uncover the layers, stop the pollution. You're programmed to be extraordinary, to be superheroes. Like Marianne Williamson says, we are programmed to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. And it's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And I'll tell you what, there's the perfect amount of time for that. How about that? There's the perfect amount of time to become everything that God's got planned for you. But at the end of the day, we say we don't have enough time. Well, don't say that, because you have the exact amount of time, the same number of hours in a day that were given to Helen Keller and Louis Pasteur and Michelangelo and Mother Teresa and Leonardo da Vinci and Thomas Jefferson and Albert Einstein and JFK and Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi. You have the same amount of time. The difference is they use their time differently than you use it. And you have to respect the fact that God gives us all free choice. He gives us free will to use the time and make the decisions however we want to. And we waste and we squander our time. And when we do that, we're not living to our full potential, then you're just undermining everything that you're intended to be, or at least some things that you're intended to be. It comes down to choices. It's not that there's not enough time. That's not the problem. The problem is that there's too little effective, and that's a huge word during this talk, effective. Living an effective life, being effective with your time. The problem is that there's too little effective time management. The way you use your time, the decisions that you make, the choices that God gives you free choices, the choices that you make. And often we become misguided and misdirected. And then when you live your life in that regard, and you do what everyone else does and lives how everyone else does, and you live in according to the values of America, where it's all based on greed and money, and it's based on quick and easy and most pleasing, when those become your values, then you get swallowed up by the way of the world, and you're just wandering around aimlessly, and you're lost, right? Misdirected, misguided. But you have to understand that there are 5 things that need to be in place to help you most effectively use your time. There's 5. So, and we're working on those on the front end. And the first one is that you need to have the right kind of mindset. And if that doesn't change and you keep thinking the ways that you were thinking before, then you're going to do what you were doing before, right? And so you need to have a different way of thinking, because your thoughts determine your actions, and your actions determine your outcomes. Your outcomes will be your future. You better change the way you think. And number 2, you better change your skill set, which we're going to show you some really practical tips on how to be really effective at using your time. In fact, when I'm most effective in my life, it's when I am most plugged into these principles I'm about to show you guys, and I'm really dialed in to these kind of mindsets. Number 3, you need to be focused. You need to have focus. Number 4 is discipline. And everybody's disciplined. Who thinks they're not disciplined? Raise your hand if you think you're disciplined. Okay, everybody's disciplined. So you're right about that. So the question is, what are you disciplined in? You're either disciplined in getting up off the couch and exercising, or you're disciplined in sitting on the couch and eating the whole gallon of ice cream by yourself, but you're disciplined at something, just so you know, right? But you better be disciplined in the right things. And then 5, I think most important, I think Martin Luther King Jr. would agree with me on this. You need a North Star. You need to know that there's an almighty God who creates the world and the laws and principles that govern your existence on this planet. Right? You guys with me on that? And without this North Star and this guidance, you become lost. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And you get swallowed up by the way of the world. And then when you wake up in a day, then you end up just trying to make it through the day because you're making all the wrong decisions. And that kind of stuff begets much of the same. Does that make sense to you guys? Is all this starting to make sense? Starting to click? So how do you make the most out of your day? How are you going to get the most out of the 86,400 seconds? Well, we're going to go with another thing and working on mindset here. So we're going to do a little game where we're going to do, it's like a word association game. I'm going to ask you 2 words and you tell me of those 2 words, which one pops into your head first. There's no right or wrong. It's just whatever pops into your head. Okay, ready? Hammer or nail? Okay, you guys all agree. Rain or shine?
Shine.
Okay. Night or day? Night. He likes the nightlife. Nice. Heads or tail?
Tails.
What's that?
Tails.
Okay, got some of each. All right. Through the day or from the day?
From the day. Through the day.
Well, you've been to the talk already. Most of us, we don't think in terms of from the day. We think in terms of through the day. It's the first thing that pops into our head, especially when things get really crazy and hectic. Same thing, it just pops right into your head. And you literally, you say, man, if I could just get through this day, right? If I could get through this week, if I could get through this month or through this year, then tomorrow I'm going to start doing all of the right things and get my life in order. And you literally begin to wish your time away. The 86,400 seconds that God has gifted you, you wish it away. So even worse than misusing our time is wishing it away. Every second is precious, and you just want to get through the day. Wishing it away. From the day is a little different. From the day, you realize that, hey, oh my goodness, today really is a gift. There's only one April 4th, 2023 that's ever going to exist in the history of mankind, and it's a gift given to you. There are people that lived over 100 years ago, they don't get this gift of this day right here, right? People that live 100 years from now, they don't get this gift either. It's just you, the people on the planet right now. So what are you going to do with this one amazing day? The 86,400 seconds. Instead of having a through the day attitude, you need to have a from the day attitude. When you wake up in the morning, you say, what can I get from this day? From this day, can I get more fit by working out? From this day, can I eat a good breakfast and improve my health and my nutrition? From this day, can I go get adjusted? From this day, can I build better relationships with the people in my life? From this day, can I plug in spiritually and improve my spiritual walk in my eternal everlasting? You see, there's so much that you could take from this day. And that's how we need to live each and every day. And you wake up and you do it again, and you do it again, and you do it again. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah. Every day presents an opportunity. Every day we're literally born anew. Every day we're born anew. When you woke up this morning, it was a new day. When you wake up tomorrow, it will be a new day. And in that day, because God gives you free choices, you can make whatever decision you want in that day. It's as simple as flipping a light switch, just like this. Lights are off. And I used the example last time we did this talk of, like, you're not an exercise person. You haven't exercised. You don't exercise. Heck, you haven't exercised in a month. You haven't exercised in 6 months or a year. Maybe you haven't exercised in years or a decade. Maybe you never exercised a day in your life. But that was yesterday, right? You wake up today and you decide, well, today I'm going to exercise, and then you exercise, and then next thing you know, you do it again the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And now you're someone who exercises. You've got to get rid of those labels. Anything that's happened in the past is in the past. You create your own future every day. That's the beautiful thing about what that means in the Bible when it says every day we're born anew. Every day you could become whoever you want to become. You can decide in one moment in time that you want to be who God intended you to be. And you could start to live a disciplined, practical, fulfilling life. Does that make sense to you guys? You make those decisions every single day. And every day you let the world tell you, put these labels on you, that you're not an exercise person. Have you ever read your Bible from cover to cover? Has anyone read their Bible from cover to cover? Does anyone read their Bible regularly? Well, you know what? Even if you don't, it's okay. You don't read your Bible ever? That's okay. You wake up tomorrow, I'll tell you what, just read a couple of pages. That's it, just a couple of pages. And then you do that the next day. And you do it the day after that, and the day after that. And I'm telling you right now, if you do that every day, only a couple of pages, maybe 2 pages, you do that every day for 365 days, you'll have read your Bible, Old Testament and New, from cover to cover. And I've done it many times. It's just who you decide to be. It's following these things here. We'll show you the skill set. You have to have the right mindset. You just stay focused, you stay disciplined, committed and consistent, and you have the guidance, right? You do that and you're going to find your way. You're going to use your time more effectively. So, what I want you guys to know, that every day, I already did the through the day, from the day. I clicked on it. So every day's a gift. Yesterday's the past, tomorrow's the future, but today's a gift. That's why it's called a present. You have to make the most out of every day that you get. Every one of those 86,400 seconds, make every second count. Every second count. It's like, Kim will attest to this too. I'm like a 2-year-old. I'm like a 2-year-old. When I say that, it's like I want to wake up early and stay up late. It's like I want to go all day long as hard as I can. And then when I get home, I don't want to go to bed. I want to do more things. I want to go work on projects. I want to study something, watch something. I want to do something. Even when I'm tired, I don't even want to go to bed. It's like that kid who just won't go to bed until he's like sitting there and just falling asleep in his chair, sitting up, right? That's what I'm like every day. Because I just want to get the most out of every single day. It's like, you don't know. You never know when, if tomorrow's even going to come, which I'm going to talk about in a second. So, and you just want to make the most out of every day and build your legacy. And I came up with this one analogy one time that I thought it just really hit the point just perfectly. And we've heard the term, make each day your masterpiece, right? Make every day a masterpiece. But here's the thing, every day of your life is a stroke of the brush, right? You guys with me? And then by the end of your life, from all of those days, those strokes of the brushes will have their say, and you would have painted a picture. And then you're going to have to paint that picture at the pearly gates. And what do you want that picture to look like? That's something you want it to be a masterpiece. It's not going to happen by accident. It will be by specific design, by honing your skills, by becoming an artist in the day. Does that make sense to you guys? So make the most of each day. Because as Psalms 118:23 says, "For this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad." Every day's a gift. And I think too often we take that for granted. And when I say every day's a gift, I like this quote too by Kay Lyons. "Yesterday's a canceled check. Tomorrow's a promissory note. Today's the only cash you have, so spend it wisely." Here I want to speak about yesterday and tomorrow. Yesterday is in the past. There's nothing you could do about it. It's done. It's over. Nobody here's got a time machine. You can't go back in time and relive the day. There's no do-overs. Good or bad, it is what it is. Now, there's nothing wrong with reminiscing or visiting the past, especially if those were great times. There's also nothing wrong if they were bad times, going back and learning from it so you don't make the same mistakes. But you can't live there. And you can't occupy the space in your brain, and you can't occupy the time of today by living in the past. That's not going to do anything for you. Tomorrow, don't know if it's going to even come. There's no guarantees. Unfortunately, in this sense of entitlement, we think God owes us another day, but sorry to say, he doesn't. I don't care how old you are or how much money you have, how special you think you are, how privileged, doesn't matter. God doesn't owe you a single thing on this planet Earth. And so you can't live in the future either, because it may never come. Now, one thing I heard that was smart is you live today for tomorrow. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Does that make sense? You do all the right things today to set yourself up for a better tomorrow. But at the end of the day, you can't live in the past and you can't live in the future. In carpe diem, seize the moment, live for the day, right? And every day, make your masterpiece. Utilize the 86,400 the best you can. See what you can get from every day. That's a beautiful way to begin to think. And if you start thinking like that, you're going to find yourself way more principled, way more constructive, not destructive, as if you were living in the through the day principle and taking every day for granted. I mean, I think that's something that's really important, that God gives you this gift of the day. It's important for us to give thanks. We have to show our appreciation for the day. And the best way to show appreciation is through prayer and almsgiving, but then through the greatest commandment of all. And the greatest commandment is to love and serve God and love and serve one another. And to me, if you're going to use your 86,400 seconds most effectively to leave this place a better place and to leave a legacy, well, then you're going to love and serve God and love and serve one another. You help other people, right? So it's not about having bigger barns or nicer cars or fancier clothes. That's not going to get it done. You have to help other people, right? And you have to love and serve God. Everything goes back to the kingdom anyway. It all goes back in the box. Have you guys ever heard that DVD or the CD that we had here? Do we still have a couple of them?
Here. It's on YouTube.
Oh, it's on YouTube? Oh, cool. We used to have the CDs. I think we got rid of the extra ones we had. It was a pretty good little talk I heard. It all goes back in the box. Everything in your life gets packed back up, and then you move on to an eternal afterlife, right? And anything you add here, it's gone. So again, I ask you guys, after hearing all of that, what do you think? Through the day or from the day? Now what's going to pop into your head, right? You don't want to be a through the day person. If you ever catch yourself saying that, you got to pinch yourself. Like from here on in. I get that you said it in the past, but pinch yourself, right? No more through the day. And never catch yourself saying again, there's just not enough time. There's never enough time. Don't say that anymore either. Because you're taking for granted the perfect amount of time that God has blessed you with. You're taking it for granted. We no longer do that. So now what we need to focus on is living in the right time zone. How many time zones are there on the planet? Anyone know? Take a guess.
7. Well, I, the 18 is 24.
24. There are 24 time zones on the planet. 24 time zones. But you only need to concern yourself with just 2 of them. Just 2 of them. And it's these 2 right here. There's time by man, and there's time by God. Like Martin Luther King said, there's man's version of everything and there's God's version of everything. You can also look at these by terms called Kairos time and Chronos time. Chronos time is the 24 time zones on the planet. That's where you look at your clock and the seconds, they tick by. The hours go by. The weeks, right? The months, the years, the decades, they go by. It's chronological. Kairos time is God's time. And in God's time, things happen exactly when they're supposed to. I'll give you an example. I'm not going to give you this example. I would give it to a different group, but I'm not going to give it to this group. You can ask me another time what it was going to be, but it's not going to happen today. I'll give you a different example. Let's just say you are driving into the La Paria parking lot on a Tuesday morning, right? Except you're coming from Publix, right in front of La Paria, and you're going to make that left in that main aisle, right there where everybody wants to park, where all the prime parking spots are. And as you're pulling up, you see the first spot, first time ever for you. You're pulling up to La Paria and that first spot is sitting there empty. It's vacant. And you look at it and you're like, oh my God, it's got my name on it. And you're over near Publix and you see it from a distance. And so you put your foot on the gas and you don't care about the speed bumps because you want that spot. It's like boom, 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 right? And you come flying up and all of a sudden, right when you're about to pull in, a car comes around the corner going like 2 miles an hour. But they get there right at the exact moment of time where you would be a real jerk if you cut them off to get that one spot. So you have to let them go, and you think maybe they're going to go all the way down, and I don't know what they're going to do. And instead, they pull right into that spot. And then you're like angry and upset, and you kind of hit the gas pedal again and just go park in the back of the parking spot because you're mad. Because that was your spot, right? And then you get out of the car, and you're walking past all the other cars that are parked there, up to that first car, and then you see this like 95-year-old man get out of the car, and like he's hunched over and barely able to get out of the car and walk, and he's barely able to make it to the front door, and then you go hold the door open, and the whole time you're thinking, see, that was never my spot in the first place. That was his spot all along. God was saving it for him. Because everything happens in Kairos time, right? So if it was in Chronos time, it was in my time, I get the spot. But God had a different plan. And I didn't know what the plan was until I got to the last spot in the lot, and I had my temper tantrum. And then I saw, Kairos time. Because in God's time, things happen when they're supposed to happen. Sometimes if you're a couple seconds ahead of schedule or a couple seconds behind schedule, you may have gone through an intersection when you normally do. But because you were a little bit off your regular time, maybe somebody was running a red light at that time, and that was God's way of keeping you from getting in an accident. That's Kairos time, right? That doesn't mean be a half hour late for work. Okay, you guys with me? That's not Kairos time. That's more of living in the wrong time zone. So we'll talk about that, time by man and time by God. So what's this look like? So this time zone is emergency centered. It's emergency centered. When you wake up in a day by man, you look at all the fires that you have to put out, the emergencies, the crisis, and that gets your first fruit. And it gets all of your immediate attention and time. It's all focused on surviving the day. and surviving your lifestyle and surviving all the decisions that you've made that were based on being emergency centered. And the more decisions you make out of emergency and focused, living in that time zone, the more time you spend in that area, the more emergencies that are created. And it just is a self-perpetuating way of living. Because everything, all of your time is devoted around emergencies and crisis. You can never ever get ahead, right? Does that make sense to you guys? It just perpetuates itself. And everything is reactive focused. When you are living in the zone by God, now you wake up in a day and everything is mission based, right? You're living a life that is based on what your purpose is, what you're called to do, what you know is principally based, so you become principally driven. So when you're living a life out of being principled, then you're thinking all the time the right thing to do is always the right thing to do. It's never the wrong thing to do. And you're always looking to do the right thing. You're looking to live a life out of principle. And you're cause actively focused. You have more of a from the day attitude. From this day, what amazing things can come out of it? What can I do to get ahead in my life? You got to understand how this works. It's kind of like if you don't take care of your car, right, and you don't change your oil, then eventually, guess where you're going to spend your time? In the mechanics shop. The only problem is when your engine seizes up, to order a new engine and then get that repaired, it's going to take a heck of a lot more time and cost a heck of a lot more money than if you just would have changed your oil, right? Look at people and how they live their life because they're not being disciplined and obedient like we're called to be towards their health and well-being. Taking care of your body is your spiritual act of worship. And when you don't do that as a result of that, then you end up becoming sick, or you end up with a diagnosis, you end up with a disease. And then you spend all of your time chasing around medical appointments and filling your cabinet with lotions, potions, and pills. And then you know how that goes. And then you start taking more medications to counteract the effects of the other ones. Then the body breaks down even more, decompensates. Then you become even sicker. Then it's a race to what's going to kill you first. Your dysfunctions or the treatment of them. And now you spend all of your time, instead of living life to the fullest, spending your time in big with big pharma and modern medicine, on a plethora of medications and on dialysis 3 times a week or whatever it may be, going to chemotherapy appointments. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? So we've got to get out of that kind of mindset and we've got to get into this one. This is a from the day kind of mindset. This is a through today mindset. Does that make sense? Check this out. Look how cool this is. Here are the 2 time zones. I love this. I love this example. It's a visual. Who's a visual person? Raise your hand. So this really worked for me. So check this out. This is how we spend most of our time in the world zone and time by man. Most of us have a very small box, white box. It's even smaller for many people. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, or heck, don't even wait, just do it today, start today. All you need to do is focus on making your white box bigger. Just focus on making your white box bigger. That's all you need, single-minded focus. When you wake up tomorrow, I'm going to make my white box bigger. That's all you need to focus on. Watch what happens when your white box gets bigger. Look what happens to the emergencies and the crisis. They begin to go away. I promise you, it's exactly how it works. We don't know, we can't find, we don't know a way. We don't know a way out. It's like our patients when they come in here. It's a perfect analogy. Some of these people come in, they're so desperate. You haven't seen a lot of the ones that I've seen. Well, maybe you have. You've seen some people. They come in, they can't even walk. They're hobbling along. They need assistance to get in and out of the office. They're on a multitude of medications. They can't even get on the table and get off the table. They're imprisoned by these diagnoses that they have. They're told that there's nothing they could do to be anything different. And you know what we start doing with these people? We simply start replacing their dysfunctions with normal function, health, and healing, right? We remove the interference, uncover the layers, stop the pollution. We teach them how to wake up in a day and plug into the essentials. And all we're really doing from a health perspective is getting them to focus on making their white box bigger. And when they do that long enough and it gets big enough, then guess what happens to all of their dysfunctions and the medications that they're on? All these things go away. We watch people get off 18, 20, 24 medications, reverse major diagnoses like cancer, heart disease, diabetes, or all three. We've seen all of that in here. And all these people do, they come in and their white box from a health perspective is so tiny. And we just slowly, every day, make it bigger, day in and day out. Every day they're born anew. And they get a fresh new start, a clean slate. And they keep making it bigger and they keep investing in the white box over and over again. And you do it in all areas and aspects of your life. And then all of a sudden, now instead of having all chaos in your life and having disorder and stress and all these other things, you replace the chaos with normal order. And when there's perfect order, there is no chaos, right? Just like when there's an abundance of light, there is no darkness. When there's an abundance of normal function, health, and healing, there is no sickness, disease. When there's an abundance of peace and order, there is no stress and worry, anxiety, fear, and disorder. Are you guys with me on those things? But you have to replace one with the other. You replace one with the other. So you're replacing your time. You're going to either replace it with a better way of living, or you could just keep it the way you were using it. And if it wasn't leading you in a good path, I would change that. Right? Albert Einstein said you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Make your white box bigger. Whatever area of your life, make your white box bigger. Does that make sense to you guys? Especially spiritually. The time on the planet's finite. God made us to be a mind, a body, and a spirit coalescing together, creating a physical being with an eternal soul. And we talk about, like Hippocrates says, well, you're designed to be healthy as long as you're whole mind, body, and spirit. So while you're on the planet, if you want to be everything you're intended to be, then you better have a state of wholeness on all three of those levels. And there should be balance in the equation. Right? You guys with me on that? But if you had to choose one of the three to plug into, what would it be? Mind, body, or spirit? The spiritual component. Why? Why? Because the mind and body are finite. The spirit goes on for all of eternity. And you look at our world today, in all aspects of our life, when we look at that trilogy, mind, body, and spirit, we've completely removed the spiritual component out of all aspects of our life, especially health and healthcare. It's insane. We're so lost and misguided. This is where we come in and we can help people. We can show them the North Star. We can be a guide. That's what we are. We're a guide. We're taking people on a journey. But we can identify the North Star and we can lead people down that trail. Right here it is, right here. Come with us. That's what we're doing every day. In a healthcare system that's spiritually dead when the spirit is the greatest essence of all of health and healthcare in existence. Make your white box bigger. Does that make sense to you guys? So here's another concept I want you guys to grasp. Because this is important too. I want you guys to understand the difference between urgency and emergency. The differences are very subtle in verbiage, but they're mountains of difference in purpose and intention. Check this out, this is what I mean. Urgency, it's the quality or condition of being urgent, pressing of importance, So it's a pressing necessity, of pressing importance, of pressing necessity. It needs to be done right now. Right, you guys with me? It's pressing importance, pressing necessity. Has to be done now. Emergency, it says right in the definition, so it's the same thing. It's just like urgency. It's urgent. It's urgent. So what does that mean? It's of pressing importance, of pressing necessity, right? Emergency is urgent. It's got it in the definition. It's of pressing necessity, of pressing importance. It has to be done now. Only the difference is it's because of unexpected occurrence. There's an unexpected occurrence, and it's requiring help or relief. Help or relief. So you've created this crisis, and now it's a pressing necessity or pressing importance. It has to be done now, but because of this unexpected occurrence, something you weren't counting on, right? It surprised you. It's a crisis. There's a big difference between the two. You don't want to live your life out of emergency. This is living your life out of emergency. You want to live your life out of urgency. So it's urgent that when you wake up tomorrow morning, that you eat a good, clean, healthy breakfast. It's urgent that tomorrow you get your workout in. It's urgent that you get adjusted, that you do your home care. It's urgent that you work on your spiritual walk. It's urgent when you wake up that you do your spiritual triathlon. It's urgent that you help somebody throughout the day. Are you guys with me on? It's out of urgency you do these things. You can't just float it out there. It has to be of pressing importance that you get it done, that you check that box. This is how it needs to be with our work lists. You check the box. It's out of urgency, you get every one of those boxes done. Or it's out of emergency, we got to deal with the crisis. Right? I mean, apply this at work. I mean, heck, we don't check the boxes. We're not acting out of urgency. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. This is what the day looks like in the office. But the second everyone shows up and they start checking the box, doing what you're supposed to do, living out of principle, being cause-actively focused. You know what that means? That means you pick up a file and you look at it. That's what cause-active focus means. And you research it. That means you know who's coming in for the day. You have specific intention on how you're going to communicate with patients. And when we do that, we're making our white box bigger in this office. What do you think happens in here? It blows up. You can't get enough people in here. There's not enough room because so many people want to come in here. That's what happens. It's out of pressing importance, pressing necessity. So, again, it's awesome because we become people who live from the day. We become people who live out of urgency. We live out of the right time zone. We start thinking along a different fashion, a different way. Everyone else is thinking the other way, right? We think differently. We look at our time differently. The day that God's been given us. We look at the 86,400 seconds. We make the most out of it. Now, you need to become inspired. You can't become just motivated. You can't just say, oh yeah, that sounds good. Let me try that. No, you have to become inspired. And you have to look deep into your mirror at yourself and really reflect and be honest with yourself. and ask yourself what's really important in life. Because if I'm telling you right now, if it's not important enough, you're not going to give it the time or the attention. I guarantee it. You hear me say it all the time. If it's important enough, you find a way. If not, you find another darn excuse. That's how it's going to be. We can no longer get motivated. Motivated would, like, you come to a workshop and you have a little rah-rah, and then tomorrow you do things a little bit better or different. That's not what you need. You don't need motivation. Motivation is something that constantly needs to occur because it wanes, it dissipates, it goes away, and then it's back to the old lifestyle. Motivation's about you. When it's about you, it doesn't last long. You have to make it about something bigger than yourself. You have to become truly inspired. You have to find your big why. And like I said, when your why's big enough, then nothing's going to stop you. You're unstoppable. If you have a child and their life depended on something, that why's big enough. You'll go over, around, through, underneath. You'll find a way to the other side. If your child was on the other side waiting for you to get there and their life depended on it, you would get there, right? I say to my doctor's report, not all the time, but sometimes, what would you do if you had a child that was diagnosed with a stage 4 cancer and 4 weeks to live? What would you do? You'd do anything. That's the answer. You'd do anything. I guarantee it. You would sell the shirt off your back, the shoes off your feet. You would find a way to the planet Mars if that's what it took to get your kid better, to find an answer and a solution. And the way I apply this in the doctor's report, that's called the do what you must attitude, right? I don't understand why we have to be in such a state of crisis or emergency. We are facing your own child's mortality. What's it going to take for you? What's it going to take? How broken do you need to be? Because what's more important? What would have more value to you? Finding out that your child has 4 weeks to, a stage 4 cancer and 4 weeks to live, right? At least you have 4 weeks. That's better than waking up finding them dead one day. At least you have 4 weeks. Obviously, you'd rather catch it earlier. But that 4 weeks, stage 4 diagnosis and 4 weeks to live, or preventing your child from ever having cancer in the first place. Are you guys with me? So this is what I'm saying with our patients. This is why they need to hear this. It's out of urgency that our patients make sure they're feeding their kids good, clean, healthy food. It's out of urgency that they make sure that those kids are active and limiting screen time. It's out of urgency that when we, over the next couple months, focus on living a more pure and less toxic lifestyle, that they bring those values back to their home. It's out of absolute urgency that they make sure these kids know how to have the right kind of mindset and the right spirit about them. And it's out of urgency that they get those kids adjusted. Are we doing enough to make that happen? And if not, then it's out of urgency. We better be leading our patients in that capacity. And that's a point that we can all point the finger at ourselves at. Because there's always more that we could be doing. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? So inspiration, it's coming up. Inspiration, I looked this up. I wanted to look up a little bit more about inspiration, and I found this really cool story. It's the inspirational story of inspiration. The inspirational story of inspiration. And they talked about how inspiration comes from the Latin word inspiratus, from the past participle inspirare. But in English, right, and it means to breathe in. In English, they talk, and the reason why this story is inspirational, because this is one of the few words where the figurative sense of the word it precedes the literal sense of the word. So in English, in the mid-16th century, the word meant the drawing in of air in the lungs. And it's still used today, right? And expiration was the removal of air from the lungs. Also still used today. But before it had that meaning in English, in the early 14th century, the word inspiration had more of a divine meaning. And it meant a divine influence on somebody from a divine entity. That's what it meant. It was all about divinity. Right? Does that make sense to you guys? But, so that was more the figurative sense of the word. At least that's how no, that was the literal sense of the word. The literal sense had to do with divinity. And now, in current English, from the 19th century on, from the 1800s on, it just means being inspired by somebody. Inspiration means being inspired by somebody. It could just be anybody. That doesn't make any sense to me. Because in its origin, it had to do with divinity. Right? You guys with me on that? I don't think that the words were confused, that one was, that the figurative and the literal were confused there. Because when I look at it, when they say the literal expression of the term, they're talking about the divine entity, and they said that that came second. No, it didn't. That's stupid to think. Because the way I look at it, when you look at someone who is conceived, you have a self from a man, a self from a woman coming together. And there's a divine entity that breathes life into that human being right at that moment. I think the words meant to breathe into, but divinely. I think that was where they need to do a little more research, and I think they would find that conclusion. Because even to today, look at the other side of the equation. What also does the word expiration or expire mean? To die. And you take that life that God puts inside of the body out. Right? You guys with me? So this is where I think that even with the time management workshop, how does this apply? We need to become inspired. We really need to take a close look at who God has made us to be. Right? What gifts and talents has he given you? What grand mission? What cross has he given you to call? Because he's breathed that into you. He's breathed life into you. Right? That's divine. We need to understand what that is. And then we need to really go after it. Go after it hard. Because, the worst travesty, the worst sin of all is the potential life lost, especially the gifts and talents that get buried in the sand. Right? So we have to understand that God makes us exactly who he intends us to be. Now, this is where the rubber can meet the road. This is how you could start to create organization and develop the skill set. We talked a lot about the mindset already. Let's develop the skill set. I got a lot of this from a book called Body by God. It was a book written by one of the co-founders of Max Living. And the book, it's actually in the office on the shelf over there by Ben Lerner. And there's a lot of great stuff. That's where I got the time by man, time by God, God zones. And some of these other principles right here that I'm about to talk about came out of that book. So the first thing you need to do, even though you are one person with one life, right? God gives you other aspects of your life that all blend together. So for me, when I break it down, so here's my wife, and then I have kids. My mom we went to lunch with yesterday. I have siblings, I have nephews and nieces, I have friends, I have neighbors, I coach wrestling, we have a fitness program, we own an office, we see patients in this office, right? I have a spiritual walk. I work on my health. I work with USA Wrestling. I have to go home and I have to do chores, and I have responsibilities around the house. So I have to take my life and separate it into all the different lives that I live. And that's what you guys need to do, much of the same, right? So you go home, take some time. You don't have to do it in 10 minutes. And look at all the lives that you live. Make sure you write them all out. And then what you need to do is, of those lives, you have to figure out what's most important. And it goes to the top of the list, right? And then what you need to do with those lives, you have to figure out which is most important. And then you call those your big rocks. Have you guys seen this example with the jar and all that stuff? Yes, yes, no, maybe so. Who has not? Okay. You said you have or have not, Kristen?
I've seen it.
Okay. So if you know it, don't participate. Let other people answer the questions. Okay. So I've got this empty jar. This is your day. And so what I'm going to do is fill this up with these rocks. It's loud. You think I could fit those in? Should I get a couple more? Would they fit? So would you say the jar's full? Well, actually, I'll even take one out. Check it out. That jar is not full. So we could do this for about 20 minutes. By the time I get this sand in there, you guys get the hint, right? Because this is paver sand. So it's got little pebbles in it, in and of itself. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to take this rock out. I'm getting sand all over the place. And what we would need to do is shake it. It's not working out well. But you guys get the hint, right? So let's just say I got all the sand inside of this jar, and I couldn't fit one grain of sand in the jar. Would it be full? I'd be able to take this water, because there's little spaces even between the sand, and I could pour this all the way in to the very tippy top. Now it's at the top. Now would you say it's full? Yes, you would say it's full, because I can't put anything else in there without stuff spilling all over the place. Now it's full. So what's the point of that demonstration? If you've never seen this or done this before, what's the point of the demonstration?
It's something like put the baby's clothes in your purse or something like that.
So, yeah, I mean, some people would look at it, and so you're right. Some people look at it and say, well, there's always room for more, right? Because you can always squeeze more in the day, squeeze more in your time, more in your life. But that's not what it is at all. And the most important thing is, like, you've got to put your big rocks in first. Because if I would have filled it with water, I wouldn't have been able to put any sand in without it spilling, right? And if I filled it with sand, I wouldn't have been able to put any, well, I could put some water in, but I wouldn't be able to put even a single rock in there. So you have to figure out what your big rocks are, what are the most important aspects of your life. That's got to go in your calendar first. That goes in your war plan first. Does that make sense to you guys? Now, of course, you have to work around things. I mean, it'd be nice if you were worth, $10.2 trillion and you didn't have to go to work. But unless you are, everybody's got to go to work. And there's certain responsibilities that have to be met. Like, for example, if I'm in wrestling season, I'm coaching. I mean, there are practices certain days a week that needs to go in there. I have to go to work. I put that in there, right? And then I start filling in the rest of my calendar with my big rocks, right? Does that make sense? So now what we're going to do is, when we start creating our calendar, we're going to have this concept too. When you put something in your calendar, then you're going to put solid yellow lines around those times in your day or week or month. And when you're driving down a road and there's a solid yellow line, what does that mean? You can't cross that line, right? So nothing can get in and nothing can go out. That's how it's supposed to be. So when you make your calendar, you got to put solid yellow lines around those really important times, and you have to stay focused on those things in those time periods. And that allows you to become great in the different aspects of your life. And this is where I can kind of combine some of those things together. So, the peaceful champion, this is something I came up with. I was asked to speak at Kim's dad's retirement party. And my whole speech was based on this concept of the peaceful champion. And when you see somebody who's a champion, you see someone who's achieved an amazing level of success at something, right? So like Kim's dad was a champion of industry. So he was vice president of GE. He climbed all the way up the corporate ladder, and he was like one rung under Jack Welch, who at the time was president CEO of the biggest company on the entire planet. And Kim's dad was a vice president underneath him. So he did really well, to say the least. Jordan Burroughs, one of the guys I work with in wrestling. So he's a champion of sport. He's the winningest American wrestler in history. 7-time world and Olympic champion, right? So you want to achieve these amazing levels of success. But if you become a champion at anything and you go home and your kids are on drugs, or you're getting a divorce, or your health is in the gutter and you've got a diagnosis of a cancer or heart disease or something like that, if you're on 14 medications, right? If your finances are falling apart, if I don't know, what else could go wrong? Everything? Everything is going wrong? Then what kind of champion are you really, right? So you know what a peaceful champion is? A peaceful champion is someone who achieves that amazing level of success, and yet they go home and their wife adores them, or their kids respect them and they're on a straight and narrow path doing amazing things, or that their health is incredible, right? And their spiritual walk and their eternal existence is in a great place and intact, and their finances are perfectly in order. Does that make sense? Now that's not me, but Kim will attest to that. That's certainly not me, but that was Kim's dad. That was Kim's dad. And from what I see from somebody like Jordan Burroughs, it's somebody like him. See? And that's what we should be striving for, and it's none of us, and we all have flaws. We all have character traits, but we should be striving for it. Looking to, achieve an amazing level of success at different things, but everything should be rising up. You can't leave other aspects of your life behind, right? Because then you're going to have severe imbalance in your life, and things still begin to fall apart. So we should be looking at becoming great in all areas of our lives. And trust me, when God calls you to do something, right, he doesn't give you more than you can handle, right? Mother Teresa, what's the saying? God doesn't give you anything you can't handle? And what did Mother Teresa say?
I just wish she didn't trust me so much.
Right. Yeah, she said, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. I just wish you didn't trust me so much. But the reality is God gives you lots that you can't handle without him, right? But he gives you everything, it's totally manageable. And he's not going to give you something to suck at. So everything that's in your life right now, coming to work right here, this is where he's got you in Kairos time. In God's time, he puts you right in those seats in this office right now. He didn't put you in here to suck. I can tell you that much. And maybe there's other things in your future, but you're never going to see them if you can't pass the test here. And he's waiting for you to be successful, to pass the test, right? He doesn't give you a kid to suck as a parent, right? You guys with me on that? I mean, we have to look at wherever he's got us. And, you know, not too many people are perfect. I mean, Kim's dad was one of the few people that were like one of the most amazing people I ever met. It's a tough act to follow, but it's inspirational, right? Does that make sense? And that's inspirational, because that guy was divine. Anyway, so now what we're going to do is talk about these tools for success that we use. You have your daily and weekly calendar. Your daily and weekly calendar. You have your monthly calendar, and then you just need a willingness to succeed. You just have to want to be successful. And like I said, if you want it bad enough, it's not going to be a problem. This will be very easy to do. From here, it's easy. It's not that hard at all. So what we're going to do is start with our war plan, your daily calendar. There's an example of one that I do. This is an old one, but there's an example of one that I do. I use this format in an Excel spreadsheet. And so I just replace different things. So it's every 15-minute, half hour, I have a slot. And then you could see, like, I'll wake up here at this time in my life. I'll wake up here. I do my morning prep, whatever that may be. And for me, I pray every morning. So I don't leave the house without it. When I'm on my A game, I do a spiritual triathlon. I'll pray, I'll read my Bible, and then I'll meditate over that and just have some quiet time, right? And then I get into the office, we have adjusting hours, and then we do, well, at this time we're doing a workout here, then it was lunch, adjusting hours, dinner, and then there's more on the bottom that's cut off. And Tuesday it looked like this, right? So this is what we were doing at that time. And then Wednesday and so on and so forth, and everything, like every half hour really is like planned out in my day. So this is a weird time because it was during Ricky's wrestling when I did this. So the whole Saturday I'd be at a wrestling tournament. All right, does that make sense to you guys? That's why it looks the way it does. And then so here, even at the end of a Sunday, that's when I do my calendar again. I take the same exact thing, and for the most part, I know my office hours are going to be about the same. I don't really need to change that. Every so often they may change. I may have a meeting or something here or there, right? Does that make sense to you guys? But for the most part, I don't have to change those things. But a lot of the little things need to be changed each week. But then you go into the week knowing exactly what the day looks like, right? And what the week looks like. And now you can make, you don't get surprised, and you can make all the right efforts. And when you put these lines in, those are solid yellow lines. And you can't cross those lines. So when it's time to work out, we work out, right? You get committed to working out. And when you go work out, you might as well do it really good and get the most return on your investment, right? Unless there's a reason why you're not, go do everything to the fullest. Everything you do, look to do to the fullest, right? Does that make sense to you guys? Just apply those other principles to some of these practical tips. And then we would have our monthly calendar, which we do here, right? We have a monthly calendar. So now things go on the schedule all the time. So you've got to update your monthly calendar all the time, right? So if something new pops up, well, grab your calendar, put it on there. The sooner the better, right? And so you got to keep going back to the calendar, looking at it, compare it to your war plan. And then when you make each week, you look at your calendar to create your war plan. Does that make sense too? And then it's just a matter of making it all happen and focusing on being great in all areas of your life. And then what you want to do is set goals. You have to write down specific goals of what you want to achieve. And they can't just be floating around in Never Never Land. You actually have to write them down, because a goal is not real until you make it tangible. And the minute you write it down, you can actually pick it up. You could show it to other people. You could be held accountable, right? So you must write down your goals. And then, we have some little workshop we do on successful goal achieving. So we can go through some of that another time. And then you want to gain support and buy-in from other people around you. Good luck being successful at something if the people around you don't support you on the journey. It's exactly why we have people bring their spouse to the doctor's report. I mean, it's crazy. It's like there's no way people are going to get under care. If they do, it's like a miracle that they got under care without their spouse. It really is. It's like almost a guarantee. We should be thinking that back of our mind. Their spouse doesn't come, they're not coming in. It'd be an exception rather than a rule. Right? You guys with me on that? I mean, good luck trying to go home with a house full of people that live with you, and everyone eats this according to the standard American diet, and all they love is junk food and eat at McDonald's every day, and then you're going to go home and try to eat the advanced plan and be successful. Good luck with that. That's not happening. Right? You with me on that? Same thing with patients, and when we're coaching them, same principles. And then remember your first fruits. What's going to get your first time? And to me, God should always get your first fruits. You give God your first fruits. You do your spiritual triathlon in the morning, and then I'm telling you, the day is going to automatically begin to have perfect order. If I forget to pray in the morning, like some crazy something happens, like kind of throws you out of bed, and it's like, oh, and you're just rushing around, and you get on your day and you forgot to pray. I feel like I'm hollow. I feel like something's just not right. Right? You guys with me on that? So, and then, but you pray to God and let Him be the North Star and guide the way. It was amazing. Whenever I'm reading the Bible on a regular basis, whatever I read that day, something from that passage ends up showing up in the day. It's pretty amazing. And to think the times I'm not, what I'm missing out on. Right? Does that make sense too? So that's basically, that's it for now. That's all we're going to go over. Does that all make sense? Everything? Any questions about anything we just talked about? No comments, questions, nothing.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
It was great information.
Yeah, it was great.
So I know Sarah already talked to you guys, and some of you guys have been working on it. We want you guys to fill out your war plans. There's apps. Kim, what are some apps you can use for?
Well, there's all sorts of different ones. You can use your calendar on your phone. You can download an app. You can use an old school, whatever you call it, planner. I have one of those too. I like to write things down and have it physically in my hands.
I used to do that, and you talked me out of it.
I don't do as well with that, with the electronic versions, but whatever works for you, decide what works for you. If you're not going to use it, then it's not working for you, right?
I used to use the old school planner. You guys used to make fun of me, and then I switched up to the...
No, you had paper stapled together. There's a big difference. I have a binder.
No, I had a planner.
No, you didn't.
I had a book.
I bought you plenty of them. You
Anyway.
You had stapled pieces of paper that Sarah printed out for you. Or
No, that was my calendar. Anyway, whatever.
You know I'm not lying.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, so that's the stress management workshop. I mean the time management workshop. So that's it. That's all I got for now. All right, so what time is it? It's about time to work out.
They probably have a lot of shift stuff to do too, so. You want to just work out at 11?
As soon as possible.
All right, everybody have 15 minutes to do whatever you gotta do. These chairs down, or?
Yeah, the chairs will go in the room over here, and then we gotta put everything back out. Gotta.
Sweet.
Grab this. Did you give me any times on breaks?
I did it